What's going on, everybody? My name's Tenebris, and today I'm bringing you dudes a review on the Soviet weapons pack. This is a big one, my dudes. These weapons heavily differ from the US weapons pack because they add brand new ammo types to the game, and also equally fulfill their own separate niches here in the game. In Generation 0, the weapons you use and the ammunition they support matters greatly in terms of overall damage potential, accuracy, recoil, damage drop off, and overall range. So, safe to say, the Soviet weapons pack has shaken things up here in Generation 0 in a pretty significant way. In order to test these guns, I've had to devise new methods of testing, especially for the Cotonax and the RLG. So please let me know if you think this testing was sufficient or if it could be improved in the comments along the way. So first off here, we're going to test the RLG. Now, I'm not gonna lie, my dudes, the RLG surprisingly turned out to be my favorite weapon from the Soviets' weapon pack. I really like this weapon. It feels like what the GRG should have always been, but let's just kind of take a look at things here. So, you can see that it's got a maxed out amount of damage, and a slightly higher rate of fire, and slightly better handling. Now, it's kind of funny the synergy that you get between the RLG and the GRG. In a lot of ways, actually, I compare the RLG and the GRG in the same way that I compare the Hurtfist and the 12 gauge pump. One of them serves a much better purpose for just dishing out tons of damage and being incredibly effective at killing things, whereas the other one is a lot more tactile and offers a lot more options in the middle of combat. The RLG just overall feels and performs a lot better than the GRG does, though, just simply due to its incredibly awesome sound design, its really snappy reload function, and as well, its explosions just feel a lot more impactful based on that unique ammunition that it also carries. As I said, the new introductions of the Russian ammunition types have shaken things up quite a bit here in the game, and in all honesty, this is probably the best explosive in the entire game, hands down. It's better than a car, it's better than a large fuel cell, and it's just overall an awesome explosive to use in the middle of combat. Now, as I had said earlier, the GRG just feels like a lot more of a tactile option than the RLG, simply due to the multiple ammunition types. But I do think that if in the future the RLG's, what is it, LG7V ammunition, if we could see some EMP variants of that, that would be absolutely sick. The biggest downside to the GRG, though, is its really slow reload animation. That shit takes like 14 years. Whereas with the RLG, you feel so much snappier with it. So it turns out to be a lot more efficient for crowd control and mob control against hunters and doggos. Now we've got two more tests that I've come up come up with here for the RLG and the GRG. The first test is the kind of long range test and seeing the projectile's kind of stability as it goes over an incredibly long distance. So you can see here that the RLG goes just a little bit further than the GRG, but it also kind of goes like askew off to the right side just a little bit. So that's definitely something that you're going to have to think about when you're shooting the RLG at incredibly long distances, is that it's probably going to kind of taper off once you start hitting like extreme distances like what you're seeing in this video. And then the most important question when it comes to any sort of rocket launcher in any video game. Can it do the rocket jump? Out here eating similar like a mother... Eh, kinda. I gotta say, the RLG is the definite winner in between the two, for me personally, and I think is an excellent addition to the game. It is finally a long-range explosive that you can use functionably against the machines. And again, as I had said earlier, if the RLG could get that EMP ammunition, that would be absolutely excellent, and the RLG would actually be really high up in the Generation Zero meta if it did have those kind of options. Now, next up, we're going to compare the AT WAD to the Experimental Capist, which is the only comparison that I could find in the game to the AT WAD because of its obscene fire rate and also its kind of like SMG application. I just felt like the Experimental Capist was the best comparison. Now, first things first, let's look at the stats for these two dudes. So, pretty much between the two, you can see that the handling for the Capist is significantly higher than the AT WAD. As well, the damage is higher by just a very small amount. And then, funnily enough, the rate of fire for the AT WAD is much higher, but that's simply because the Capist takes the same stats as the 5 Crown Capist, and that overdrive function isn't brought into consideration for the rate of fire. We could actually consider the rate of fire for both of these guns to be roughly about the same, but we'll be looking at that in a little bit more detail later on here. Now, for the first test, I decided to compare both of these guns against each other when it comes to fighting against a harvester and a pack of hunters, maybe with some runners splashed in there too, because that's where I find SMGs really shine the best here in Generation Zero, is in those kind of CQC applications. Now, due to the really high fire rates of both the WAD and also the Capist, I personally don't put a red dot onto them because I find it just jumps around too much for me to really track my shots. So I prefer the iron sights, but if you dudes out there prefer the red dot on SMGs, zero hate. Now, the AT WAD is actually really gnarly accurate in close quarters combat situations. The moment you start bringing it to any sort of a medium range distance, though, it really starts to fall apart. And the other kind of noticeable area is that lack of punch, and all SMGs suffer from that lack of punch. But the Experimental Capist seems to be able to make up for that lack of punch with concentrated fire, whereas the AT WAD requires just a little bit more concentrated fire in order to have any sort of significant impact on components and armor pieces. Again, that's all due to that just slightly lower amount of damage, and more than likely it's due to the 9x39 ammunition that the AT WAD uses as well. I almost feel like the 9x39 has a bit more damage drop off than your typical 9mm SMG does. Now, the other inherent downside to the WAD in comparison to the Capist is the fact that you can't attach a compensator to the WAD. This means that no matter what, the fully automatic fire of the WAD is going to impact your recoil a lot more heavily than it will from the overdrive on the Capist. Comparing the AT Wad to the Capist on the range, you can really see the dramatic impact that having that compensator makes. The Capist just groups its shots way better than the Wad does, and the Wad will pretty much never be able to do that because it can't put on a compensator. Now, in the end of this fire rate test, the AT Wad wound up having about 100 less rounds, and I think that that's purely based on the difference in magazine size. The AT Wad with a 5 crown magazine has 35 rounds, whereas the Capist has 51. That's a pretty significant ammunition difference. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that the AT Wad is like a poor man's experimental Capist. Honestly, though, it's not like that's too bad of a thing. The AT Wad is a fantastic close quarters weapon, and even though stealth is a little bit weird here in Generation 0, it's still really nice to see a weapon that's actually like purposefully designated for stealth in the game, and I think that that's just really great for the players out there that like to make stealth builds and like to play Generation 0 stealthy. Now, let's get on to the last weapon from the pack, the Cotonax sniper rifle. When you compare the Cotonax stats to the Mauser or the Ellie Stutzer, the only thing that the Cotonax has going for it is its rate of fire and its magazine capacity. Outside of that, it performs significantly worse when it comes to its damage, and its handling is worse than the other two, though not by that much. The only real bone that I have to pick with the Cotonax and the way it was implemented into the game is that it seems like it doesn't really know what it wants to be here in Generation 0. It's not really that great as a silenced sniper rifle, stealth killing things from a distance, and it's not really that powerful, and due to its semi-automatic function, it just doesn't quite do the damage in comparison to any of the other automatic 7.62 weapons in the game. And I'll be honest, maybe it's just because I don't like the gun, but I found sniping with it to actually be really painful. A lot of times, the way I enjoyed the Cotonax the most was taking all the scopes off of it and just using it as like some sort of semi-automatic battle rifle. It just lacks all of the punch that a long-range sniper rifle needs. And that, in part, we've talked a lot about ammunition today. I feel like that, in part, goes hand in hand with the 7.62. It's just not sniper ammunition here in Generation 0. It just doesn't function like sniper ammunition does when you compare it to any of the hunting rifles ammunition or the 50 BMG. Now, I am pretty sure that on Adventure mode, the Cotonax would probably be a pretty badass sniper rifle, but on Skirmish or Guerrilla, it's just not up to snuff. But yeah, for if anybody likes to play on Adventure and really wants a good rifle for practicing their sniping, the Cotonax is perfect for that because you have a ton of surplus ammo and a really decent mag count. Now, I also tested the Cotonax and the various hunting rifles for how they dealt with ambushing with a 1x4 scope. And, admittedly, the Cotonax did a lot better here than it did for its long-range sniping. And again, that high mag count means that if you do miss, you got a lot of bullets in case you need a fallback. And to quickly show off the comparisons here to the Mauser and the Ellie Stutzer, you can see here that the Mauser does really good. You need to switch to full metal jackets when you go to really, really long distances, especially against armored machines like the Apocalypse machines. But still, it did really, really good as a sniper rifle. And then for using it for ambushing in close quarters combat with the 1x4, it also equally did a really solid job, especially because you have 5 bullets, so you have enough room to miss with like at least one shot. Honestly, the Ellie Stutzer is my favorite hunting rifle in the game. I know that 4 bullets is a pretty crappy mag count, but admittedly, its damage output and the damage carry through and lack of drop off that its bullets have is awesome. It's been one of my go-to snipers for the longest time in this game. And equally, the Ellie Stutzer performs really well in close quarters combat. Now, I ran similar tests for the Cotonax and the PVG, because, again, the Cotonax just kind of sits in this weird realm of a sniper rifle where it's not quite the stealth sniper rifle that the hunting rifles are, but it's not quite the, like, anti-tank semi-automatic sniper rifle that the 50 cal is. So I did my best to test it. Stat-wise, it's exactly what you would expect, but the 50 cal has incredibly low handling. In my opinion, the 50 cal has fantastic handling in the game. Now you can see here versus hunters, the Cotonax does okay. It takes about 4 shots to remove the hunter's flechette cannon. That isn't exactly like fantastic in any way, shape, or form, but it's not terrible either. The good thing is the Cotonax feels incredibly stable at this kind of distance here. As I said earlier though, oddly enough, the Cotonax feels best when you take all of the scopes off of it and you just use the iron sights. But when you compare it to the 50 cal, it doesn't stand up as an anti-tank, anti-armor type of weapon. And this is just kind of the thing about the Cotonax. It doesn't know what it wants to be. And personally, I think that if the Cotonax had been given a higher amount of damage to it, then it would have served its role much better, instead of just kind of being this awkward sniper rifle that doesn't really work well as a sniper rifle. So the one thing that I can say that the Cotonax has going for it is its ability to dish out bullets. It's a pretty fast semi-automatic rifle, and it's almost 2 times as fast as the 50 cal, and it's just leagues faster than the hunting rifles. Again, I feel like if the Cotonax was paired with a little bit better damage potential, then it would actually be a really awesome sniper rifle, especially when it comes to being like a really fast sniper rifle that you just dump a bunch of bullets into. So, in the end, to summarize things here, the AT Wad is an excellent stealth SMG. It has a crazy rate of fire and it's a ton of fun to use. and its 9x39 ammunition is excellent to see introduced to the game. Personally, I am a big fan of the idea of ammunition types being further expanded on and new ammo types being added to the game. The RLG is the best explosive in the game, and hands down is what the GRG should have always been. And the Cotonax sniper rifle is awkward, and personally I don't like it, but I could see how other people would like it. Personally, I think it deserves just a little bit of a buff. Now, is the Soviet weapons pack worth buying? I think it personally is. Again, this is incredibly cheap content for you to buy and add to your experience here in Generation Zero. The weapons sit kind of nicely into the meta, with the RLG sitting at the upper end, the AT Wad sitting kind of in the middle, and the Cotonax sitting at the very far end of the meta. I think that that's still a rather nice offering as a weapons pack, and it's not offering things that are like breaking the game or pay to win, but it's also not offering things that are absolute trash and are completely unusable. But I really want to know, my dudes, before we wrap up this video, what do you think about the Soviet weapons? What do you think of the AT Wad? Are you a fan of the RLG? Do you think that I'm entirely wrong about the Cotonax? Let me know about all of your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. And thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's been a bit of a girthy one, but I really wanted to do an in-depth review on these guns and do some proper comparisons here for you dudes. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.